Hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of TezTalks. I'm your host, Marissa True, and of course, I'm joined with my co host, Stu Elms, that you probably recognize from TezTalks Live.
Hello,
And
everybody.
there we go. And today's very special guest is Om Malviya, who is the president of Tezos India and the co founder and CPO of Tezsure. So, welcome, Om. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, it's really good morning.
So, we're going to start off this conversation with a quick explainer about what Tezos India is. And so, can you share a little bit more about that and what its mission is before we get to know you on a more personal level?
Yeah. So uh, Tezos India is, in a brief, it's an entity which works to promote and drive the Tezos ecosystem growth in India, and it does that by education, training, partnerships, strategic partnerships, and basically uh, doing anything and everything that could help the growth of this ecosystem in India in some way, right? And then not only in India but also working with other entities around the world to foster a healthy ecosystem growth, right? So that's basically what the Tezos India is. We define our goals in three ways: education, training, partnerships, meetups. These are the basically all this, and we cover basically anything and everything in all these three.
Very cool. So before we dig into sort of the projects that you're currently working on, can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey and what brought you into the crypto world?
So I started into crypto, I guess, around 20 was, and I got into crypto. Reason was that uh, my background is software developer, software engineer, from my education. And at that point of time, I was trying to dive into the field of digital marketing, actually, right? So I wanted to maybe get some sort of my own digital media and how to curate your content and platform in a way that it could reach out to people and serve good content, right? And at that point of time, I realized that I fall into the rabbit hole of crypto, and I was reading about Bitcoin and blockchain and a lot of stuff, and I realized, okay, nobody knows about that, right? At least in India. And then even on internet, there was not a lot of information, right? And then that's and my thing, or you could say, it has always been like that. If nobody is doing it, I'm going to do it, right? Or I'll get a team and I'm going to do it. I'm not going to wait for, oh, hey, let's wait for a year. So there was not a lot of information about Bitcoin and blockchain. So I started a blog. It's called itsblockchain.com, itsblockchain.com. Still running, and there's a good team and everything. And then I started just writing about blockchain, how it works, and everything. Right now, it started to gain momentum around 2017 for obvious reasons, because you got content, you got to establish blog, and you're writing content. Then suddenly the boom comes, right? And then it just takes off. But it was the same time when I was writing about all these different projects, right? And I was covering all these different projects. That was the same time when I started covering Tezos. When the even though the position paper was launched in 2014, which not a lot of people know, even I didn't know in 2017. Oh, that's such an old project. But when the ICO was about to happen, I jumped into the white paper and I said, oh man, this is pretty cool, right? And I dived into it. I wrote even a blog about it. It's not trial right now because it had a lot of factual errors uh, because of my short understanding at that point of time. But yeah, I that was my first phase to first confrontation to Tezos. And then after that blog, I wanted to dive more into the tech. Instead of just setting up a blog and pushing content, I wanted to do something more on the smart contract side and how the blockchains actually work and listen to the applications. And that's when that was my journey when I started to dApps. And yeah, I'm still doing them, and I'm lucky that I chose Tezos to go into that journey. And only thing that has happened to me is taught me a lot things more and more.
So what was it? What was it about Tezos in particular that made you want to get involved?
All right, I think these are not working, but with Tezos, the thing is, a lot of people don't know this, but in 2017, there was a lot of discussions around decentralization, and then proof of stake, right? And being there myself, I didn't know that. I, I was always like, oh no, how do you build a workable proof of stake solution, right? It's so hard. I mean, it's not a proven method. Now everybody wants to do proof of stake, and Theos was the one who was trying to do at that point of time. And I'm like, okay, let's read about this. And I thought, okay, maybe this could work, right? There was also EOS at that point of time, and some, I don't want to take names, but some other blockchains, right? And then the way Theos wanted to do is was so democratic and decentralized, and I'm like, okay, this is how it should be done, right? And now not a lot of people uh, pay attention to decentralization and all. It's more about, hey, can I do it just within, let's say, 5 seconds or 2 seconds or 3 seconds? Because now we got actual use cases. The actual use cases not in 2017, but even though people wanted, hey, is it something that we can is it something that's decentralized and something which can sustain for a long period of time, right? And yeah, and then after that, uh, there were some things about Tezos that I knew that this is really cool. I've never seen that before. And then there are some things I really wanted to see them roll out. For example, on-chain governance and self-amendment, these kind of processes, right? When I started getting into Tezos, I didn't know that there would be some day when you would just completely switch up the consensus algorithm to something, for example, Tenderby, right? I didn't know the time in 2018, but it's happening, and some other cool stuff is happening. So I'm thinking it was a good choice.
I mean, I think it's super interesting that you basically got into blockchain because you saw that there was this emerging technology that no one was really covering just yet, but it really caught your attention. And then once you entered that space, you looked for what you thought was at the cutting edge of that cutting edge space. And for you, that happened to be Tezos, which, I mean, obviously all of us in this room are hardcore advocates for Tezos, and I wonder why that is with a show called Tez Talks. But
Yeah.
so obviously under Tezos India, you're involved across a broad spectrum of projects. But one thing I want to zoom in on, because it was just completed fairly recently and was done in partnership with us at TZ APAC, was the Tez Asia Hackathon.
Oh
So
yeah.
I wanted to ask you to basically share what the event was and how it went, and you know the success
Yeah.
that it became.
Yeah. So when we started Tezos India, the primary goal was to sort of reach out to Indian audience and Indian developers and say, hey, Tezos is here in India, and it's here to stay, and it is here through Tezos India to support you guys to build any developer solutions and anything that we want to do. We are here to support you, right? And when we did that, we realized that the response is really good. I mean, and the response is really good. And then we started Tezos India Fellowship and couple of developer programs and all, and that are going on in India, right? Now, what we wanted to do, and since TC Epic has been there, we wanted to have not only we don't want the things that we have done in Tezos India, for example, to be just confined here, right? So, and then we got this amazing, talented team, and we wanted to share ideas. Okay, we could do this, we could do this, and how could we maybe start doing let's say cross boundary talent exchange, or this kind of thing. And it's still, it is just started. I'm telling you, it is just started. That there is a hackathon which is primarily being uh, marketed in two major regions, for example, Singapore and India. And then there are the teams from Singapore, teams from India, who are participating in these hackathons. And there are so many opportunities, right, for all of them to get hired, to start their own startup. And I think it majorly started with EGG, Ecosystem Growth Grant. I'm not sure, if we have talked a lot more about it, but EGG is like Ecosystem Growth Grant, where it's a joint effort by Tezos Epic and Tezos India, where we provide grants up to $5,000, up to $10,000 to anyone who wants to build something and who already has built something, and just push that project or that idea to a next step, right? And to make it ready for the market, or to get it validated that, okay, it's really going to work. And it's not only about $10,000, I would say, or $5,000. It's a lot more, because our entire teams, all the people from different backgrounds, they get involved in it, advise, okay, this is how you should do, let's say, go to market strategy. This is how maybe you should, your UI UX should look like, and this is how your feature should look like, right? So it's a lot more than that. I think that was the first step, and then second step was very obvious, that we have this program, and now we need to create a funnel, right? We need to create also awareness, marketing, and also builders and developers who would build projects, so that we could push them through this. And I think that's how Tej Asia happened, and I think it's going to go only bigger and bigger, because in the first version we cover majorly Singapore and India, and we have got, I guess, two or three teams for Singapore. They built really nice solutions, and a couple of teams from India. And yeah, I guess within 6 or 7 months we might see another hackathon, lot more, right, in different epic regions. And I'm really excited to see what's next.
So for a first of its kind event like that,
Yeah.
what kind of response did you see?
Hmm. So for response wise, it was really good response. And hackathons are tricky, by the way. Hackathons are really tricky, right? So what you got to do is, and we have been doing it in India for quite a good long amount of time, since 20 end of 2019, I would say, right? So what we wanted to do is share our expertise with these Epic team, and then they also have a really good team, and then somehow find a way to maximize our efforts, right? So in India we have channels, but the tricky part was Singapore, because we were going to do this in the first time in Singapore, right? And we had researched about several hackathons, which worked, which didn't work, and I would say it worked pretty well. It worked really good for us, to begin with, in the Singapore region, right? We got good two or three good teams, and good working solutions, right? And then what other thing that we wanted to do is to now the other thing that I want to share is, when it comes to hackathons, it's a very different mindset. Even a developer mindset is very different across the regions, right? So and that's why you really need to be in touch with developers. So if a developer, for example, in Switzerland, he is very accustomed to JavaScript or some other language. The same developer who is accustomed to, let's say, JavaScript or Python in Singapore could be really different. So the way a developer start their journey, the way they start building their projects, and also there's 10 different things of 10 different things when you are doing a hackathon. So you have some workshops going on, but then sometimes you got developers. These are the people who are really cool, who are really into the tech, but let's say they don't want to attend a workshop, or they've got the universities going on, and they've got their jobs going on. So a hackathon is not only about organizing workshop or just putting a form out there, but it's also about creating actual engagement, and how do you reach out to them, how do you make sure their queries are being taken care of, right? So there are a lot of learnings that we have had over a couple of years, and we share them with TZPEC team, and together collaboratively we try to find the best way to basically set a standard or framework to organize hackathon, right? And I think that's how we are going to do it in future as well. And that framework is going to be refined furthermore after this hackathon. But I think we are in pretty good position to maybe uh, maximize this kind of hackathon to not only Singapore or India, but in other regions as well.
Yeah, I think you touch on a really, really important point in terms of how TZ APAC and Tezos India are working together to basically lay the foundation of some kind of unified but diversified developer
Yeah,
culture throughout Asia, especially given that India is obviously a leading developer market. So there's an argument to say that they're going to set a pretty strong tone and be pretty influential in that, but then also kind of offering room and space for new ideas coming from other parts of the region to really kind of gain a bit of traction and attention. And I think that's been seen both in the Tez Asia Hackathon as well as the Ecosystem Growth Grant that we launched earlier this year.
yeah,
Um, but when it comes to the hackathon in particular, like, can you share more about the projects that actually came out of it? I think there were multiple winners. I remember Tesco, I think, was at the
yeah,
forefront.
yeah.
Can you share what sort of ideas they were running with?
Yeah, I mean, usually you don't get to see if you're doing the first hackathon, you don't get to see these kind of projects. But the level of complexity and um, the work these fellows and developers had put in it was just astonishing. For example, there was this project called Reddit Finance, right? It was just a streaming. So, for example, you want to pay someone on based on seconds, right? Let's say, and that you create a payment stream, and that stream keeps going into their account based on seconds or time that you decide, not necessarily up to you, up to the project manager, but up to you, right? And let's say you create a stream of 1 minute based on, let's say, $2 per second, and for a minute that stream will keep going on. And I'm the cool thing was that usually UI UX and the entire overall user experience is so underlooked in this crypto space. But when you got to see these projects, you have to say, oh my god, this is they are doing everything that needs to be done, but they're also trying to put their efforts to make it even easier, right? You got the nice UI UX, you got this very simple Kukai beacon, all the integrations, all the smart contracts and everything are doing really good job. And so you got Radiant Finance. Then there was Omnisub protocol, which sort of like credit delegation swap, right? Something like I guess that movie. I'm not able to remember the name, but yeah, the Big Shot. Yeah, the Big Shot. It revolved around that movie, and then you got Tezco, and the theme was sustainability, right? And the Tezco really, I really like the idea of Tezco, how they came up with their entire project. And then and even in Twitter and there we have only put 5 top projects because there was a demo there were a lot of VCs. But if you go to the actual hackathon link, you would find at least more than 20 projects who have smart contracts. And then we are also doing a lot of things. There were also some teams who wrote really good smart contracts. They created really nice front end, but sometimes we're not able to, let's say, connect front end to the smart contracts. And this thing could happen with people who are just new to blockchain. They don't even know about Tezos, Bitcoin, anything at all. And we have seen teams who didn't have any idea about not only Tezos but not even blockchain at all. But some teams were able to pull it off, some teams were not. But yeah, the demo then top projects were chose on the basis of multiple criteria. But what we are doing right now is, after this hackathon happened, now our approach, and it's not only us, but we're also working with TZAPEC in this front, is we have built a lot of you could say relations or existing relations that we have with companies who are building on top of Tezos. And usually there is always lack of Tezos developers, right? So now the people who have built the projects, we are also trying to maybe come up with a process so that we could facilitate them as developers from other reasons, and getting them into starting their Tezos journey, right? And I think that's what's pretty cool. Even trying to build a process where, hey, if you build a really good project, you get grant. If you don't use development, you get hired, right? So there's nothing to lose for you. It's only gain and gain.
Yeah, it's very cool that you guys were able to give some opportunities to some of the teams there. Um, Zooming out a little bit, I'm really curious about India as a market. Obviously, population pushing 1.4 billion, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Some internet connectivity issues in some of the populations. Where do you see blockchain and crypto fitting into that economy?
Yeah. So I have a really fine-tuned thesis for that. Been in space for so long here. But so let me put it like this. So India is 1.4 billion people. Almost last time I read, 400 million people have smartphone and internet connection, which is more than entire population of the United States even, right? And out of that 400 million people, you got majority of the people who are just recently, let's say a month or two or a year ago, have become familiar with things like Amazon or YouTube
Yeah.
and Google, right? And then you talk about, let's say, what you call uh, the equity markets, right? The stocks, right?
Yeah.
You got a Bombay Stock Exchange, and only like 2% of the people out of all the Indian population have begun to diversify their risk and started investing into assets. It's only 2%, right? And even if further go down, it's even less than, I guess, 0.5% of the people at the moment right now who are uh, let's say investing or doing something with crypto. There are so many things you could do with crypto: investing, holding, paying just a gas fee, collecting NFTs, for example, right? And now if you look at the growth of the growth and the projections, the number of people who are getting into equity, and then the number of people who are joining crypto and doing crypto activities, that is also really higher. So what I would say is, even let's say in next 5 to 10 years, 5% of the Indian population gets into equity markets and stock, right? Which is just basically teaching that there is another investment area, or the other way to diversify your risk, right? And then once those 5% people gets educated, then you get, let's say, just 2 or 3% of the people more out of that. So I'm talking about 2 or 3% of entire Indian population in next 5 years could be, and it's realistic. I'm not. It could be even more. It gets into crypto, right? I think it's going to be really huge,
Mm.
because in crypto usually network effects are a lot bigger, right? Even though it for equity and stocks it took so many years to get those much of users, but once we get to even 2% of the all the Indian population trading into crypto and doing that, I think it's just going to explode. And within, let's say, next 2 or 3 years, it's going to be 5, and within a year it's going to be 10, and it's going to be a hockey stick curve, I suppose.
Well,
And
the growth of your website is an indication that people are interested, right?
yeah,
And
and
go
people
ahead.
are interested, and that's happening majorly because India is a huge startup ecosystem, right? They are already startup who are serving to billions of at least millions of customers, right? You got likes of Robinhood, you got likes of, maybe I would say, let's say, what I don't remember what United States use, but it's likes of Paytm in US, right? So there are a lot of startups, there are a lot of Indian companies who are building from India for the world, right? These are the companies which don't have any crypto element now, and these are major fintech companies, right? And now what the trend that is happening is the trend that I am saying is all of these founders and all these companies are behind the doors, becoming receptive to crypto, and they're all just waiting that if we get some sort of regulatory green light, which is now the regulations are like, and what I feel is that there's so much innovations and funding and activity has been happening in this space. Like you got the crypto unicorns, you got likes of Polygon, and a lot of like Instagram, and so many big even crypto platforms out of India that governments are like just they're just sitting in the corner, silently watching, and they're just trying to come up with the best strategy, right? Not to ban it, not to just completely destroy the industry, but I think it's going to be really useful when you got a specific rule of specific set of rules that this is how you should do these kind of things, and I think that's when uh, the the explosion is going to happen, and it's really going to take away.
So, from what I'm gathering from what you're sharing, is that publicly there's a growing curiosity. It's still currently at the minority, but as it kind of hits the mainstream and there are real life applications for this kind of technology, people will kind of get a little bit more engaged. And the government stance seems to be they're not necessarily, bullish and all for it, but they're not against it either. So they are just biding their time to see what sort of regulations would make the most sense,
Yeah.
which is probably a
One thing,
better approach.
yeah, one thing I wanted to add to that is that the growth in terms of user is actually been really explosive. So if you look at the people who got into crypto and who are investing into it or using it for DeFi or NFTs and etc. It's been it's been really good. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think yeah that has been really on the peak, and everybody almost in your friends group, in your peers, everybody knows about crypto. Everybody's doing something, right? So and then you get really cool startups and so the problem in 2017 was not a lot of people wanted to jump into this space. So you get the innovation happening when you got some real cool products. Then you got really cool VCs and funds you're backing you, and then you got really nice marketing and everything going on. Like let's for example sponsoring a cricket game. It's like 200 million
Hmm.
viewers, right? And you are also trying to spread
Yeah,
the right education, right? And
yeah.
that's how you get all of these things. I think these are all the things that are happening right now, even without any right set of rules from government, but it's sort of like self-regulation that is being happening by crypto exchanges, and the growth has
Yes.
been immense in the Indian region, I would say.
So it sounds like back in 2017, maybe there was initial curiosity, but no one was really willing to take the risk until
Exactly.
about maybe this year or last year, it sort of hit a critical mass where people thought the needle's starting to lean the other way, so we may as well get involved. But then, of course, with India, we mentioned this before, like India is renowned for its software developer talent pool.
Yeah.
And as we were saying with the hackathon and the ecosystems growth grant, we're using that to sort of foster innovation in these key markets. But what do you think it's going to take for us to be able to develop this talent pool even further? Like, how are we going to actively encourage those who are still sitting on the fence to truly consider learning how to develop on blockchain technology?
Mhm. Right. So from developer side, um, India, the majority of the Indian developers usually write code in two languages, JavaScript and Python. That's the trend right now and been there for quite a while. Now, if we talk about blockchain, India is actually it might even be first. I don't know. I think it should be first, but it's top two or three countries with the number of blockchain developers, right? And back in 2017, the trend was not a lot of people were writing code on Ethereum or Tezos, for example. A lot of people were still into trying to being risk averse and writing in Hyperledger, right? And now the trend that you are saying is um there is this growing trend that you have to know at least some sort of knowledge of how to write code on top of blockchain, right? How do you write a smart contract? That is becoming day by day and uh, necessary thing in your CV or resume, and that's the trend that I'm seeing these days with the young developers, right? So I think I don't have any stats, but I think India is already in, number one in terms of blockchain developers, right? And that is growing really fast. And you got so many trainings and tutorials and examples, and then if you even if you look at the global all things, majority of the development teams behind all these big blockchain companies, or be it small blockchain companies, or be it average blockchain companies, smart contract, anything it could be, they are actually located in India, right? For example, from India itself, and if I'm talking about Tezos, you got 13 plus projects from India, or who have teams in India, right? They could be registered in Singapore, they could be registered in Estonia, they could be registered in San Francisco, but they have got development teams in India going on, including two premier institutions, which is one of them is IIT Madras. And I'm sure a lot of people knows about IITs. They are like the best engineering institutions across the world and in India. And then two IITs, IIT Madras and Hyderabad, and they are both institutions. They have got a research group going on who are contributing to the core Tezos protocol, like multiple OCaml and parallel smart contract execution. And these are the things they are working. If this research, comes to fruit, which is it's going to be, if it comes tomorrow, I think it's going to speed up the Tezos protocol itself in a much more efficient way. And this kind of innovation, that is, it's not only about a protocol way. Then you got a lot of developers who are building these little applications, who are building really cool dApps and participating in the hackathons and everything, right? I mean, if you come to India, I would say this is a pretty familiar name. It might not be among the investors, but it's very familiar name among the developers, and that's what we need, right?
Yeah. The priority
So
definitely rests with the developers first.
if we can come back to India as a market for a second, and tie it in with the projects that you're spearheading, particularly in the DeFi space.
Mhm.
What unique challenges and opportunities does the Indian market offer for DeFi projects?
Okay. So, see, I think all the Indian developers and entrepreneurs have figured out the way to run any DeFi or blockchain companies, etc. Right? Usually, you got a structure where your headquarters is in Singapore or somewhere else. Majorly, it's in Singapore, and then you got another company in India, which is basically works as a development team, right? It just develops. It doesn't hold private keys and stuff. That happens, and usually you'd see different kind of structures. So now it's not any more of a doubt if I should start a company in India, or if I should start, right, because it's hiring is pretty good in India, right? And what I'm seeing in terms of developers wise, and is that a lot of companies in India, it's not only startups. It's also, I think a lot of publicly listed companies who are trading on the Bombay Stock Exchange are are looking to get into blockchain development, or they already started at least sneaking into this corner. They already are hiring and seeing, okay, what's happening in this space. And we have also, from the sales side, we have spoken to some of them, and I think they're just waiting and trying to see what is the right way to go about it. And it's not about if they're interested or not. No, yes, there are a lot of people who are interested, right? And I think it's just about the right moment, that they get a sort of framework that how do we activate this. Maybe the question was something different, but I dived into something else. But yeah, just feel free.
So then, keeping that in mind, can you share a bit more about Tezsure and Plenty DeFi and what actually setting that apart from other DeFi platforms that already exist?
All right. So yeah, as I said, I started in Tezos around 2018, and I started startup with my co-founder, who is one Austria, Tezsure, something called Tezsure, right? And I wanted to do Tezos India because I knew it's going to happen in India. Back at the time, nobody knew that this entire wave or boom is going to come from India. But having been this space, and everybody, the peers around you who are doing really cool stuff, I said, no, man, we have to have some sort of presence in India, otherwise we're going to miss it. And I'm so happy that we did it that way, and still, after Ethereum, we have a good position in India, and it's just early mover advantage because Ethereum people were early before us, uh, and we did that, and then then I also had other startup Tezsure, right? And it is we have the Tezsure, we have Tezos India, and the development team of Tezsure, which sort of happens to be contributor to one of the project, which is called Plenty DeFi, also sits in India, right? So it's been really great. What I would say is that the kind of talent we have been able to find from India has been really good for us. And what we are looking is, from the Plenty DeFi side, to hire more and more people from India, and we have open for all the people with smart contracts, front end or back end people, and all of that, right? And the idea with Plenty DeFi was, and I was just going to share a little bit about it, because so the idea with Plenty DeFi was to bring liquidity, right? So we always start with the sort of like the first problem that we have, right? That was the same with Tezos India, and it was same that we started with Plenty DeFi, that we had a couple of ideas to build other stuff, A, B, and C, but we thought, okay, we first need liquidity on Tezos, right? And how do we enable that? Because the NFT space is flourishing really well, but in DeFi we need something. So we created this idea of Plenty DeFi, where we started with the yield farm in a unique way. It's not, if you look at the other yield farms, nobody has been able to sustain sort of yield farms for not even a month, and we have been, sustainable and growing, even for last 3 months, right? And then sort of creating a yield farms, and then also creating a lot of good amount of revenue for the protocol, and then being able to distribute them into developer talent, and growing the protocol and the project itself. uh, and then that's where it is right now, that you got a couple of yield farms, you got Plenty Swap, which is another AMM, token to token AMM, and you already got some awesome decks like PeopleSwap, which trades against XTZ. But then we thought, okay, now if now the tokens are being so popular on Tezos, we need token to token AMM, and then the idea came of CThis, and CThis is another brilliant idea by Arthur Bittman himself. We are also undertaking that project, and I guess CThis might be live, likely maybe on testnet or mainnet in a couple of weeks. It could be 1 or 2 weeks, and then we are launching, and then we are launching Xplenty itself today, maybe. Yeah. I have to catch up with the team, but yeah, it could be today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope not a lot of people are watching this, but but yeah, and there have been so many good learnings along the way, the way we are, and now we are collaborating with all the people. So the learnings have been so good with, yeah, like we collaborated with use, collaborated with, let's say, Bender Labs, and the entire, it's so good to see, if you're looking from if I'm looking at it from a Theos India perspective, that entire ecosystem coming together and trying to find synergies between and among each others, that how can we take this forward. What is the next good thing that we can build, which would enable another thousands of users to get into Tezos without having any, sort of, let's say, or our own interest, but having the interest of the blockchain, the ecosystem itself first in the place. I think that's really cool and unique about Tezos that we are having to see right now.
I mean, so basically, big picture, there's so much going on, and you're trying to capture an enormous amount of potential across whether it's developer talent, whether it's in the DeFi and finance space. I mean, I honestly, I think it's quite hard to articulate the scale of this opportunity for for the Tezos ecosystem. And I mean, Stu, do you have any final questions before I wrap up? Because I have one last question to ask Om.
I was just going to ask Om if people want to find out more about you and the stuff that you're working on, where would they do that?
Yeah, I think there's so many stuff of going on. I realized that recently, and I'm usually always it's my 24/7 hour only Tezos. Either Tezos here or Tezos there, right? So I realized that. So what we are gonna do on Tezos India side is we are going to upgrade our website, which hasn't been promoted that much. You have some numbers and stuff, but we are going to streamline that, so you can always get some nice queries and stats and everything. That's any hackathon that's going to happen on Tezos India hackathon. In India, we usually always have hackathons going on. We have sort of got mini hackathons running. Even right now, you might have you might get 3 or 4 different hackathons going on, right? So, and these are the hackathons for people who would maybe even could build a voting DApp or just the simple applications, just to get to people to get their first step in on top of Tezos. It could be, buying a mango using Tez or any simple application. It could be, right? Um, and then the other thing that we are working on is right now sort of a report, a quarterly report or something, like some sort of a report that we just wanted to be there. We just wanted when we looked at Theo's foundation report and Kupusav report, I'm like, maybe we should write a report. It's just an idea. Maybe we should write a report. We are doing so many stuff here, people should know and how to get connected. We have done like and I think that's coming up really nicely. And within next couple of days we might release that report that was actually is happening on the grounds in India, right? And Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff happening on the developer relations side and getting startup onboarded on Theo's side. uh, and in India, a lot of people are talking about Theos. Cool and smart people are talking about Theos. Yeah,
I
it's been
mean,
a journey, being you are
yeah,
part of some WhatsApp groups who are, let's say, who are the people who along with you. I mean, you with all of these people who are taking this entire ecosystem forward, and then you are the only guy who is always there to talk about Tezos, and then you just go offline for like a year, and then somebody already starts asking, "Hey, what's up with Tezos?" I mean, I'm seeing a
yeah.
lot of stuff, and I'm like, "Okay, let's get on the call." Right. So yeah, it's been really amazing, and I'm just never been a better time
Yeah.
to get more
It
excited.
all sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you pretty much answered the last question that I did have, which was basically what sort of future do you see when it comes to Tezos in India? And I think you wrapped it up beautifully when you said you want to be able to buy a mango in Tez on the side of the road. And I think that that's pretty much what it comes down to, taking it all the way from top to bottom. But listen, thank you so much for your time today. It was fascinating to learn about the ins and outs of Tezos India and India as a market. And hopefully, when we catch up next time, we'll see a lot more products live.
Yeah, and maybe better lighting and everything. Then
We'll
Looks great.
we'll
Looks
get
great.
you a ring light for the next one. All right,
Yeah, definitely.
and yeah,
All right, it's been
right.
such a great time, guys. Thanks, Marissa. Thanks to
Thank you
wish you
so
a
Thanks
much.
so
great
much.
day or evening, wherever.
It's bedtime here.
I know Marissa is in Singapore,
Yeah.
but yeah, so you have a nice evening, right? Okay.
All right.
All right.
Bye.